everyone.
When Elijah posts that picture of the crowd later, be sure to tag yourselves wherever you see yourselves in the background. Everyone, how's your Emerald City Comic Con gone so far?
Just got here.
This is it. This is the start. Emerald City, go!
John, is this also your first day?
Well, yes, I'm having a wonderful time, except for the fact that despite these hearing aids, I still can't hear the damn questions. So I beg your pardon anyway.
No one can, John. That's the secret.
Ah, good, okay. And anyway, we never give them a straight answer, do we?
We say what we want to say.
Exactly.
That's right.
Just nod and look evocatively into the distance. Yes, yes. All right, let's get into the questions. Question number 1. Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, which you all became best friends on, pioneered so many amazing film techniques and technologies. So were there any moments that when you were filming you thought, this can't possibly work, but when you saw it, it really took your breath away? We're getting deep right away.
Matt, the crucial moment for me was in a screening room when we saw the first dailies of that opening sequence where young Frodo jumps onto Ian McKellen's car.
Yes.
Because the film can't work unless you believe all those characters are the right size. And if it doesn't work, if you don't believe that there are dwarves and hobbits of the right size, you haven't got a film. And I was sitting in that screening room when they were showing the thing, and they had a rough assembly that they had put together, and that wonderful moment where you jump into the cart, and it was absolutely a hobbit and a wizard of different sizes. And McKellen and I were both there, we both did. And I said to him, how the hell did you do that here? And he said, I've no bloody idea.
I remember when Allie, our oldest daughter, our only child at the time that we were filming, a year and a half or a year later, after principal photography, when the film was about to come out, and we were in this little house, and I had a laptop and got a piece of footage, the teaser trailer, and showed it to her, and she just said, how does it look so real? And I said, well, you were there. Like, let's pause. When this shot, you were standing right over by the camera. She says, I know, and the funny thing is, it's what she was saying was real looking, was that it was matching her imagination, the reality of the imagination. Because if you turn the lights on and you take some stuff away, it's just, a set and people and whatever. So the idea of what's real, what does it mean to that kind of Velveteen Rabbit, thing. But, we get to see each other on the cast on these, conventions. And Emerald City, I haven't been here in a long time. But being here with John, Elijah and I get to see each other all the time.
We do a lot.
We eat together, we do crossword puzzles together. All the fan fiction is true. So, but for a moment, I'm going to turn my attention away from Master Frodo and over to this dwarven god, John Rhys-Davies. And you were talking about technology. And, you're thinking about Andy Serkis and Gollum, and you're thinking about some of the visual effects. Did you ever read the Bible? Do you remember the book of Job? This was Job. This was Job. But the first shot we ever did together was in the Lothlorien woods up in the trees. And they hadn't worked out John's costume right yet. So we had on this massive thing that was, he could barely, he's a strong man, he could barely move. And they had to have a huge air conditioner unit pointing up his skirt. Trying to make it so that he didn't pass out. Then they start doing the makeup on him, and the makeup is, special effects makeup is being done for 100 years. They were pushing the envelope. They almost killed this guy. His face was peeling off like smitten with boils. Am I wrong? Am I telling the truth? So, sometimes low tech, mid tech, high tech, the journey and the effort that goes into it, and the kinds of, sacrifices such as they are that people might not know about are real when you're doing it. So there you go.
Elijah, I would also love to know, did you jump into the cart or was that your stunt double?
Oh, well, so for that wide shot of Frodo jumping into the cart, that is Kieran Shaw, not me, yeah. And then when it's me sitting next to Gandalf, that was us on a cart that was a built rig that had a seat in the front and a seat in the back, and the camera was set at a certain angle. So it was essentially using classic forced perspective, where whatever's in the foreground and whatever's in the background, you angle the camera just right, and it looks like they're sitting right next to each other, with one being taller than the other, and that's how we did the cart. Did that sequence, yeah.
I would also love to follow up with the super important question of, in that scene, did you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs?
I have. I definitely have.
Will you wear wigs in the
I
future?
certainly will. What's so funny about that interview that Dominic Monaghan did, that has really taken off again. It's amazing. It continues to spread like wildfire and find new people who had never seen it before. But my wife had never seen it, and we watched it, and I hadn't watched the interview in probably, 20 years or something. And my answer to the first question is, have you worn wigs? And I should have just been yes. But I was so adamantly, no, I don't wear wigs. I'm like, why, man? You definitely do, and you have. But I don't know, I'd like to have a word with my younger self. One thing about your question you had asked about, was there something that you had seen on set from a technological standpoint, or a moment that you remember, and how it ultimately transpired later? And the first thing that came to my mind was Andy Serkis in his, now green suit, not for green screen purposes, just sort of, it looked a bit like Gollum, and this is the suit that he would wear on set as Gollum as a reference, because it was before, we weren't doing motion capture at the time, and it was really a reference pass, and then he continued to drive the animation from there. But he was there physically, and there's the scene, you'll remember it in the movie, where he's off fishing in the river and on the rocks and jumping around the rocks and grabs a fish and he's very excited. He fucking did that, dude. On the side of the mountain, in this river with lots of rocks. It was very treacherous, and he is climbing on there, and it was so hyper-physical and so inspiring that you're like, that's Gollum. And yet, obviously what that ultimately became was yet to be seen. So in rushes, going into it was the upstairs, I think, at the Powderhorn that they had rushes for the dailies. So we would sit upstairs in this conference room at the hotel that we were staying at, and we watched that scene, and it's just a guy in a suit running around the rocks like a madman.
You know that.
But the commitment was so there and beautiful, and obviously it's a memorable moment in the movie.
There's a quality in the human spirit that sometimes something won't be denied. It won't be denied. In this particular moment that Elijah's referencing, we were at the top of this mountain, and the way it sort of felt was like we had filmed the main bits, and we were going to be in cars and vans driving and trucks driving back down the mountain, but they had kind of stopped on the side of the road and found a little piece of babbling brook that maybe they could shoot something. And I don't know how long that unit that had been there setting it up, but Andy had been prepping for it for a month. And so for us it was like, a Thursday at 2:30. For him, it was like the Super Bowl. And when they started rolling, he flopped himself down into these rocks. And it was more than the character. He was telling us in the movie, he was telling the director, he was telling the camera people that this is real, this is serious, and no one is going to stop me from giving a massive performance in this movie. And we were all like, fuck, okay, wow.
And by the way, keep in mind that what he was up against was so unique.
Yeah.
You know, he initially was cast as a voice actor. I mean, that was part of the role, and then he'd come down and participate as a visual reference. And from that moment on, the driving force behind his performance was, no, it is me, and I am going to drive this. It's not going to be the animators at LOTR who are incredible and capable, but I need to drive this physically, and everything that I'm doing is not just a reference pass, it's the real performance. And, you know, it resulted in an iconic performance.
They say, you know, in your workplace, and really in life, in hobbies, in your family, and whatever, you make yourself invaluable. You make it so that no one can imagine, irreplaceable, no one can imagine doing it without you, and it's through, with him, talent, but sheer force of grit and personality and physical, you know, just
Yeah, and by the way, a theme throughout the entirety of the shoot, you know, between Aragorn getting his tooth knocked out and like asking for super glue so that you know Viggo could put his tooth back in and keep shooting. Like
Sean,
was
didn't
just
also
like
your
it was a
foot get
consistent
pierced?
story. What's that?
Didn't Sean's foot also get pierced very
Sean's
famously?
foot was pierced.
I think, but with
John, you had your face was slightly allergic to the makeup and had to endure. You know, it's.
I think the point that you were making was that those of us who are actors and have survived a little while know it is that we are the lucky ones. The class that I was in at RADA in 1968,
show off.
all of them had real talent. All of them had some measure of real success. But unlike any other profession, acting depends on opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, you seize it, and you own it, and you make yourself indispensable, as you said.
Yeah, well said.
So we've heard about a lot of injuries, but Elijah, we haven't heard any of your injuries from the set. So how did you get hurt shooting Lord of the Rings?
I didn't really have any injuries.
His feet were cut up all the time.
Yeah, sure.
His feet, like.
Yeah, sure.
But Elijah was like.
That's a common Hobbit ailment.
He was like Gumby.
Scratches, you know.
Elijah was like Gumby. Like you couldn't break him. They would tie him up and like outside of the pond with the watcher or whatever.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And they hang him upside down from a cherry picker, and
Sure.
I'm like, you guys, this seems like maybe it's not
wrapped
safe,
in
whatever. He's like,
Sheila's
fine.
web as well.
Yeah, the Sheila,
Yeah,
like this.
already
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
But I do remember you bleeding from the feet a lot, and when they would clean your feet off every night, they would use alcohol, and then eucalyptus, mentholyptus, some kind of lyptus, and but he was, while the rest of us were like, that's cool. He was like, nah.
So now that we've had some tremendous acting advice, I have a very serious question. In this era of legal cannabis, is it time for a Lord of the Rings branded weed strain?
Don't you think?
Yes.
It's kind of wild. There should be, I mean, Old Toby, right?
Long bottom.
Long bottom leaf.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Finest weed in all of East Farthing, or is it West Farthing? I can never remember.
If there's an
Farthing.
east, there belies the west.
Farthing.
There belies the
But
south.
I'm pretty sure that the Lord of the Rings herbal communication
Supplement?
existed before a lot of the present iterations, so they owe a debt of gratitude.
I think if an officially licensed, weed strain would be pretty great.
There's 3,500 people in this room, 3,504 who would buy it, is all we're saying to any advertisers.
Mary and Pippin edible.
Hobbit mushrooms as well.
Okay, so
You know psychedelics are all over the Shire.
that's your booth next year, right here. Proto psychedelics. So let's get back to the real serious acting questions. Each of you had a different accent and dialect for the characters that you played. How did you come upon that? Did you bring that? Did an accent coach say, no, this is how you're going to be speaking?
Well, you based yours on me, right?
I based my entire life and career on you. May I introduce a future president of the United States?
That used to be impressive. Now they let anybody do it.
Well, if you want an answer, the truth is, Tolkien sets out roughly what his characters are like and what they sound like. We knew that the elves, for instance, have a lyricism in their voice that is based on the music of the Welsh language, which is very much like that and rather wonderful. But it can also be a great language of power. Let me just give you a little bit, the first word or two of the Lord's Prayer in Welsh. The Lord's Prayer, as you know, goes, "Our Father, which art in heaven," right? In Welsh, it is like this. Ein tad arwyth an y nefoedd. And that is the language of power. And we knew that the hobbits were basically West Country, Somerset, maybe a bit of Dorset, maybe a bit of Devon and Cornwall, a bit there.
Cornwall, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they gave me a tape, a recording. Andrew Jack and Roisin Carty were our dialect coaches and our dialecticians. And they gave me a recording of a farmer. Well, that's a nice shiny apple. And I would say that before every single line. Like, do you remember the Shire, Mr. Frodo? That's a nice shiny apple. Do you remember the Shire?
It's your mantra.
It's the hook. It was the hook. Yeah. The first time I ever did the accent without the dialect coaches, mothering me was for a video game. And it was both terrifying and liberating when I realized it was like a foal standing for the first time. Like, I think I can actually do this.
Which video game?
Oh, I don't know. Lord of the Rings, blah, 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 from the blah, blah, blah. 2004, Lord of the Rings.
All of us PS2 players need to know if it was that video game. Elijah, how about you in Frodo's accent?
The accents were really specifically mapped out as they were also articulating based on region, where characters came from, and there was a lot of thought put into it. None of it was accidental. And with Frodo, the thought process was that not having him have a country accent due to being of a slightly more noble blood, being a Baggins, and his uncle kind of showing him a broader worldview, and his accent being reflective of that broader worldview. So RP, as sort of standard received pronunciation, was the choice, so that it was just very, very simple, and that he sounded slightly other, which would, again, just evoke his relationship to Bilbo.
So this is the time where I'm going to tell everybody and the nice people who put the screens up backstage. Oh, they didn't like that one bit. I'm so sorry, nice people backstage. That they're going to put up a QR code for the fan hub, and everyone in this room can ask us a question. This is so nice in case you're too afraid.
This tech is so Seattle.
I know. And I'm the person who is going to choose which questions to ask. My name is Ashley Victoria Robinson, if you're mad at the end of this panel. So get your questions in now. You can ask up to 3. Please don't ask 3. There's 3,500 of you in this room, and we have less than that many minutes left.
Can they order food to their chairs from that?
I'll tell you what, if they order food to share, I'll even let them bring it in the room.
All right,
And while people are doing that, and because then I have to panic and open the app on my side to see what they've asked, I want to ask, is anybody going to go to the show floor with Elijah and kick everybody's ass playing Magic the Gathering today?
It's funny, I only have played twice now in my life, and that was all very recently. I am not an experienced Magic player, so I would get my ass whipped. That's the truth.
I know you're a staple at our Magic Cons.
Yes,
so
right, yeah.
It would be a shame not to ask about it. Okay, let's.
Casinos caught me. They won't let me play anymore. They're like, he's counting magic. He's counting cards. We can't let him,
That's the real truth.
How many hit points do you think you get, dude?
Can't ask questions and refresh the app at the same time. Oh, good. There's only 93 so far.
Good.
Question number 1. Will Elijah Wood and Christopher Lloyd do an impromptu over the garden wall panel?
I don't know if we have the time for that, but I would certainly love to. I love Over the Garden Wall.
I'm gonna say probably not in this room, but maybe next year at Emerald City Comic Con.
It is the 10th anniversary of Over the Garden Wall this year, this October.
And if anyone hasn't watched, you now have homework for the rest of the show. What was your favorite movie or scene? I'm gonna say not from Lord of the Rings, from anything. Favorite movie or scene? I'm so sorry to do that to you.
I urge you to watch Man on Fire.
Yes.
Denzel Washington's greatest performance in a career of great performances. Fantastic movie, wonderful.
What jumped into my head was Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia when he's saying that it's not that it doesn't hurt, the trick is not minding so much. Yeah, I had a pinched nerve the other day, so that I took wisdom from that.
And you said Lawrence of Arabia is what I need. How about you, Elijah?
Oh my God, it's like an impossible question.
I know.
We could be here for hours talking about favorite scenes and favorite movies.
But you were talking just beforehand about a movie.
Oh yeah, a recent film, The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer's
Woo!
really powerful, upsetting film, light fare, about the commandant of Auschwitz and his family, and the thing that makes it so extraordinary and uncomfortable is that it never goes beyond the walls of the family's home, but they share a wall with Auschwitz, and so you are sort of in this reality of their reality in this home, as if they're pretending as if these atrocities aren't occurring on the other side of the wall, but you hear them, and it's just deeply upsetting and beautifully filmed and an important film to see.
Who was your favorite actor to share a scene with? You don't have to say someone on this couch.
Favorite actor
To share a scene with in Lord of the Rings or in anything?
You know, let's say Lord of the Rings since it's the theme of the panel.
Look, there was only one miserable old son of a bitch on Lord of the Rings. The entire cast was not only gifted, talented, perfectly cast, but they were the most amiable and congenial and delightful and optimistic young actors and old actors that I've ever worked with. They were fantastic. It's just a pity about the old miserable son of a bitch.
It's just not true.
It's
just not true.
Unfortunately, I wore his boots every day.
John's voice may communicate some of that gruff thing, but you have so much joy and humor, and like his boating, he likes to boat. John in a boat in the Cook Strait. Like, John, you can't go in the Cook Strait in your little boat, you're gonna die. But he just has, there's a whimsy in you that is so poetic.
I'm so glad you mentioned the boat. Yes, because I actually bought a cheap boat and had it renovated in New Zealand and took it all the way to England, where it promptly sank at mooring. And as for being a fisherman, I should be in the Guinness Book of Records, because when I drop a hook in the water, you can hear the fish laughing.
I watch on TikTok these people who are going to cross, circumnavigate the globe, and they've got their satellite phones and their GPS. John's just like with an oar.
That is very Gimli-esque, though, to just make it under your own power.
The real fisherman, of course, was Vigo. Vigo is a really, well, everything Vigo does is so accomplished.
Everyone in the audience is like, yes, absolutely, yes. Has anybody attended their high school reunions?
Not I, no. I didn't graduate high school.
Oh.
That's true.
And it hurt him. I think I might have gone to one, but it was never really my vibe.
You didn't want to go and show off?
I got invited back, and I gave a very bad speech, and they never invited me again. So
What is your favorite Lord of the Rings meme? Will you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs, William? Is this where we reveal how active we are on social?
So I'm finishing up a degree in public administration, public policy, and
Yes! Woo!
wow. Shout out to all you administrators out there. Well done, well done. The hope of the world, right there. So the class that I'm just finishing right now, tomorrow I have my last paper for this class. It's a human resource management, whatever, and they wanted us to do a meme for something about retention or something like that. And I asked my daughter, I'm like, what kind of meme should I use? And I was thinking of like the girl walking with the guy, look, you know the one, right? Yeah. She sends me Sean Beam like this. One does not simply retain employees. That was awesome.
For John, what is the name of the boat that sank?
Gone.
Doesn't it need to be more feminine, Gonley or something?
I actually called it dwarf cat. Actually, dwarf scat. Which of course refers to scat as well, yes. And it really was. And it's still, anyway. And never was there a greater proof that the ownership of a boat consists of taking up $100 bills and pouring it into the ocean, tearing them up and putting them in.
Which cast member from The Lord of the Rings smells the best?
Vigo. Vigo smells good.
Billy always smells like a bath.
It's true.
What do you mean smells like a bath?
He bathes a lot, Billy.
Baths.
He loves the bath.
If he's too tired to go out, instead of saying, I don't want to go out with you, he's like, I'll have a bath.
Yeah, bath and sleeper.
Yeah.
He's a real hobbit.
Yeah, he's a real hobbit. He'll eat, and then, So, but he always got kind of an ode to toilette vibe going on.
Okay, this is a good follow-up for that. Any plans to go and see Billy and Dom in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead? Currently in Toronto?
It's in Toronto now, yeah. I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it, unfortunately, but there's a good chance that it will continue on.
Say more.
Well, I don't know.
Oh my.
Beyond there being hope that it might.
Yes.
I mean,
Would anyone in Seattle like for them to bring it here? We'll send that message along. So I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but Allie, my oldest, who I've been talking about all day now, said 4 or 5 times in the last 3 days, I really want to go see Dom and Billy and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And so I just had this idea that I would just sort of fly her there so she could do that. And this is a story about fathers and daughters. So she comes in and I said, hey, Allie, and she was, I don't know if she was grumpy or focused on something, but she just kind of grumbled and moved past. And I was like, oh, you picked the wrong minute not to, answer me. Because I was about to give you what you wanted. But so if she wants to go, are people going to show this online? No. Don't you? No. Yeah, I'm telling you that I would be happy to send Allie to Toronto to see the boys if she wants to go. Allie, you're welcome.
And Allie's also in Lord of the Rings, correct?
She is.
For anyone who doesn't know, now you have more homework. Over the garden wall, find Allie at the end of Return of the King. Question for DJ Elijah. What's your favorite vinyl album to spin at home?
Oh, man.
No pressure.
That's also really hard.
That's a mean question, actually.
Whoever asked that, you're mean.
Record to play at home. I don't know. It's probably like an Alice Coltrane record or...
Only has to be.
I listen to a lot of jazz at home. Yeah.
Pat Metheny. That was mean.
Yeah. I don't know. There isn't like a go-to record necessarily.